Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, where everything you're about to hear and see has been done in one take. I'm your host, the One Take Man, and welcome once again to Daft Punk Month 2. For this week's video, I thought I would take a look into the one soundtrack album Daft Punk have in their career, or more precisely, the one album they made that was specifically intended to be a soundtrack album, namely the soundtrack for Tron Legacy. Released in December of 2010, it was initially recorded over the previous, I'm going to say, 2 to 3 years, as the movie it is tied to was in pre-production, production, and then post-production. I probably should have rewatched this movie deciding to before deciding to do this review, but really that goes a little bit beyond the scope I set for myself of Daft Punk Month, which is to simply look at the individual albums and see how well they stack up. So for the interest of continuity, I'm simply going to stick to the album. The TLDW for this review is, I'm not necessarily sure this, a project like this really fits the creative mold and aesthetic sensibilities of Daft Punk. They do give their best, and I I do think there are some interesting highlights that have emerged over the course of them working at this working at this project. But I don't really see myself revisiting either the album or really many of its individual tracks at any point in the near future, unfortunately. And now that I've gotten that out of the way, it's time I delved a little bit deeper into my impressions of this album. In the interest of full disclosure and full honesty, I should mention that my review is based off of listening to the complete edition of the soundtrack, which includes not just the base album, i.e., the thing that was actually part of the movie itself, but also various bonus tracks that were included with various other releases of this album. And I have to say, on average, the bonus tracks are better than the tracks on the base album, and the reasons why pretty effectively showcase the problems that this project has. And the problems don't arise from don't really arise from Daft Punk themselves, because I don't think anyone can really can really say that they are bad musicians. I would not have dedicated two full months to them already, and nor would I have considered dedicating at least one more if that if that were the case. Also, from a historical perspective, they were they were already very well known and quite well established by this point. It is very safe to say that this movie needed them more than they needed the movie. The real problem, I think, comes more from the format restrictions that this kind of project places on them. Restrictions that are quite obviously absent from the bonus tracks, because they don't have to show up within the movie, and don't have to restrict themselves to the format that this movie presents. And because they don't have those restrictions, they are better capable of unfolding their ideas and allowing the various rhythms that are being layered all throughout it to really complement each other, and to really bring the most interesting aspects of each other more to the forefront. I have no doubt that Daft Punk would be able to create a very interesting concept album based off of this based off of the premise of this movie. The problem instead with this soundtrack stems from the fact that they have to evoke the themes this movie is going for, while still trying to having to complement the a somewhat more limited visual component. I'll say, a majority of the tracks from the base album are under 3 minutes, and actually a lot of those are actually below 2 minutes, and that doesn't really allow them the time to really showcase their strength, their compositional strengths when it comes to when it comes to creating an expansive soundscape, and when it comes to filling it out with intriguing rhythmic interplays. And as such, while I will fully give them credit and say that they do manage to establish a baseline sonic feel for what it is that makes this movie distinctive, on the whole, the tracks are more focused upon sounding big than they are upon sounding engaging. I'm not going to say that all of them sound the same, because that's not really the case. However, if you listen to them back to back to back to back to back, they kind of just blend into each other, and are only interrupted occasionally by a certain highlight popping up. That is perhaps interesting, but not necessarily memorable. If there are any tracks that are memorable, that does not come through due to any aspect of the composition, or to any aspect of how the song itself is actually created, but more because one element that is involved within the that plays a role within the creation of this track stands out to certain listeners in particular. When a duo do have the opportunity to compose a longer track, then their strengths do come a little bit more into the forefront, and they do fully utilize that larger canvas in order to experiment and build a more solid connection to the listening audience. Additionally, another thing that is noteworthy about this album, aside from it still being quite fitting for this movie, is that it includes a lot of orchestral or otherwise traditional non-electronic instrumentation within the individual tracks, and as such, it could be seen as a turning point between their previous works, which have basically conquered electronica, if I am to be perfectly honest, and their more prolific follow-up, where they experimented a little bit more with various instruments, sounds, and production processes. So yeah, this is not the sole thing that makes this album interesting, but it is one that definitely comes to mind, at least to me. Overall, hidden behind some nondescript highlights, this album does present a very intriguing, if at times a little monotone, sonic identity to the movie that it was made for. My final rating for the Tron Legacy soundtrack album is a 3 out of 5. And that was my review. Thank you for your attention. If you enjoyed it, well then please like the video, and maybe even share it wherever you think other people will also like the video. If there is anything you'd like to add, either to the album or to my review of it, that's what the comment section is for. And if you want to see when my next video gets released, well then please subscribe. And ideally also ring the bell or do whatever else YouTube will ask of you in order to keep you notified. I also have a main channel where I talk about book-related and literature topics, a link to which you can find in the description down below, right past the rest of my social media links, which I would suggest you check out should you choose to. Additionally, you have the option of supporting me on Patreon, where depending on the level at which you pledge, you will receive various perks, such as early access to my videos and scripts. both for this channel and the aforementioned main one. Until next time, I have been the One Take Man.